You speak about Yakub's two brains being activated by the Pleiadians and the Aldebarans. Do we humans also receive activations to our brain from star beings? Is this basically what we would consider having the gift of foresight, prophecy, divine wisdom, etc.? Let's address this question. So if we look at the chakras that people are familiar with, so it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, we as Nagarus have the 2 extra above that give you 9, right? So this is the pineal, this would be the pituitary, then we'll have, that will be the thyroid, the thymus, the one we call the solar plexus, the spleen, this will be the prostate, or for the female, the uterus, yeah? In addition, because I've added a 2, 8, and 9. Now, when we look at these, we can look at these as realms as well. All right, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay, so that diagram should help us to answer the question, because when we're dealing with information, let's say this is outformation, meaning that information coming to you into, so if you kind of look at the pyramid, they say as above, so below. You can see that on this, right? So it's like a reflection. And the lowest realms, right? So we would say, let's say this is the physical or the material. In fact, you have planes, right? You have planes, and then you have realms. In the religious world, like this would be referred to as Lahut in Arabic. You have Malakut, and then you will have Nasut. So you have 3 realms, loosely, because this is what we would call the realm of, let's say, humans, the realm of the humans, the realm of the, for lack of a better word, angels, and then this would be like, let's just make it simple, the realm of the Most High, as the religious world would have it, right? But then you have like the physical plane, the plane of force, spiritual, mental, divine truth, divine reality. Right, we're talking about being able to receive information or outformation. So when we're talking about Yakub, we're saying that you have your brain, which is connected by way of the mental, but the mental plane is what accesses the higher realm. So when we're talking about you being able to receive information, you're receiving information from the higher realms or the higher planes, and your pineal gland, which is what people talk about a lot when they say opening the third eye. However, beings that are vibrating on higher levels, like the extraterrestrials, they can communicate with you and influence you by way of thoughts. So when you look at the mental plane, which is here, this is where you deal with all your thoughts. So when you're thinking, that information is coming from somewhere, right? So you have memory, you have different types of memory. You've got your subconscious memory and you've got your conscious memory. So beings that know how, they can influence you telepathically by sending you messages, because telepathy is mind-to-mind communication. And so when you're aware that everything is a vibration and that you're receiving these frequencies known as thoughts or messages that are coming from the higher realms, this is why within the human hearing there's a spectrum where you can hear audible sound. The same with the light in terms of the visible spectrum. And so even though there is a visible spectrum where you can see light, because remember, light can be turned into sound and sound can be transferred into light. So you receive messages all the time by way of thoughts. And these thoughts could be coming from anyone and everyone around you. So you could be walking down the road and pick up somebody's thought, because thoughts are vibrations and they have a weight, they have a color, they have a frequency, and you can receive these messages. You receive messages all the time. However, to receive higher information, which comes down into information, right? You have to be tuned in, or to be able to pick these messages up as a receiver. So when you're saying that, do we also receive messages? You receive messages all the time. However, if you're not aware of them, then the thoughts that come into your mind, into your head, could be from anyone and anything. Remember, you also have your ancestors that are linked to you on a frequency, on a vibrational level, because you're connected to them and they're connected to you. So when you're like, you're the person in the driver's seat, but you also have, your mum and dad, yeah? So your mum and your father, who have their mum and father, and this goes on, for 4 levels or 4 generations. So each one has their own, right? We'll show the diagram. So this is you in the driving seat. Then you have the first level down, which is that's 1, mother and father, then 2, then 3, then you'll have, another one, which goes to number 4. Okay, so that will be the 4th level. So you have all these personalities that make you up, and each one of these people also has their own matrix, or 4 generations of personalities, which can be like 30 in all or less, because you subtract the ones that are still alive. So this is the 30, subtract yourself, that becomes 29. And if your mum and dad are alive, you subtract those as well. So depending on who's alive, you'll have a different amount of personalities that are working through you. And so you could be picking up their messages, or you're picking up messages that are in the atmosphere or around you from other people. You can tap into the mental reservoir where everyone connects to and pick up messages from there. Or as you say, extraterrestrials or beings on a higher level can also send you messages. Now, what tends to happen is that in the world, the people that know of how to control you by way of your thoughts, they use methods like advertising, the media, the books that you read, the movies that you watch. All of these are sending you messages all of the time. And you then act on those messages depending on how you are set up to receive them and whether or not you respond to them. Yeah. Spawning, right? But we say respond. So when we're dealing with the story of Jacob, the Pleiadians, they had an agenda, right? Because they wanted to control this world. And so they had to utilize beings that are going to be placed or put in power because they were given to rule the dominion over 6,000 years. So what they did was, by influencing Jacob to give him this idea of creating a being that was going to basically control the planet, but through them. And because they knew, because Jacob didn't make it to the end, so what they were able to do, like most religious books, they would tell you that they were inspired, by God or by an angel that was sent from God to come here. Like, for example, in the Islamic religion, they would tell you that an angel called Gabriel came, and he was the one that was giving messages to Muhammad throughout. And they say that's inspiration. Or even when people write songs or write movies or music, they will tell you that they received inspiration from somewhere or someone, or they read a book. So what we're saying is that most of the time, the thoughts that you have are not original. And so they can influence you by way of, like I said, these books, movies. So most people will read a book, and in the book, they will tell you that this book was inspired from God or from some type of angel and so on. And then people behave and act based on that book. So extraterrestrials that want to utilize people on the planet, they know how to send subliminal messages by way of these prophets, these angels, or these holy religious people that are used in each religion to convey the message. So what the Pleiadians did was sent messages, because remember, Jacob with his 2 brains was very smart already. So they utilized his brain to give him this idea to create this being. And in the same way, when people are like meditating, what they're doing is they're sitting down and focusing and saying that they want to be able to communicate or travel beyond the physical world or beyond like the material plane, because they want to raise their vibration to the higher realms to receive or meet these beings that reside on these higher realms. And what we do as well, based on how we tune ourselves in, we can hear the voices of our ancestors, and we know and are able to know which one are sending us positive or negative messages. And it's us that decides, being in the middle, what we do with the frequencies or the thoughts and the messages that we receive. Do we decide to act on the negative or the positive? And so, because we're in the middle of this duality, we're able to decide what we do. And so, yes, you can tune yourself in to listen to the correct voices from your ancestors. You can even tune yourself in to receive messages from a higher being by way of you being able to raise your vibration either through meditation or, reading, like we say, reading Wu Sabat. In our case, we have actually got a being that has incarnated, i.e. come down from, the higher realms. And he is also an avatar who is able to receive information and then transcribe that information to us. And because he's able to do that, but obviously he has been specially prepared. I'm talking about Dr. Malachi Ziyok, Partner Bab Yanun, of course. And he is able to then give us all this information from these extraterrestrials. And you can also, if you train yourself, raise your vibration, and are able to sit down, meditate, and communicate, or even travel to these higher abodes or higher realms, because the higher beings, they don't want to come down too low, because coming down is a low vibration and to deal with all the chaos on the planet. So they will communicate to you via way of your mind or the mental. And we have a scroll called The Mind, which really teaches you about the power of the mind and how you can utilize it to receive, information, and to be able to pick up and discern and know what messages are designed to, have you acting in an agreeable way or in a disagreeable way. We have to use these words as agreeable and disagreeable because it's not necessarily good or bad, although people tend to translate agreeable and disagreeable as good and bad. But good and bad is actually subjective. So to answer the question again, Yaqub was influenced, just like, when you start to look at the actions of, say, the being they call Hitler, for example, right? The being that people know on the planet as Hitler was influenced by one of the 200 fallen angels known as Hitler, right? And through him, he was able to utilize the physical body of Hitler and basically to carry out his plans. So these same Pleiadians that were in contact with Hitler, and they put him in touch with this witch known as Madame Blavatsky, who was also a medium who was able to channel these Pleiadians and give Hitler the idea of trying to create a supreme Aryan race. It's the similar story with the same Pleiadians who were influencing Yaqub to create these Flugerods. And if you look at the plan, it was exactly the same plan. And the reason why is because these are the same ones that are saying, create man in our image and in our likeness, because they wanted to control the planet. And if you look at the world today, most people will tell you who's controlling the world, who's controlling the media, who's controlling the movie and the music industry. You will see that that plan actually panned out to the point where they have been running the world and controlling everything for a very long time, until now, where that 6,000 year time span that was allotted to them has actually expired. So yes, they can control the world from behind the scenes, but if you go back, this is one of the things that Kanye West was saying. He was saying that when you start to look at the music industry, the contracts, and who's behind it and who's controlling the world today, you will see that it was these beings that were supplanted, and they influence you. Like I said, it doesn't always have to be by way of like how in the case of Yaqub, where they were actually directly telepathically influencing him. They're doing that today by way of media, because the social media and the way you think, the advertising is like, when you receive a thought, it's often selling you something or making you think a certain way to buy a particular product or to follow a particular fashion and so on and so forth. So it's actually happening anyway, but you have to then be aware by the fact that when you start to study, when you start to look at how you behave, why do you do the things you do? Why do you eat the food you eat? Why do you wear the clothes you wear? Why do you watch certain movies? Why do you behave in a particular way? And then you look at, say, the moral standards that you're using to make these choices. You would have to look at, okay, if you're a religious person, the gods and the deities in the books are the way that the people who follow them behave. So we have a scroll called God of Light and Fire, which goes into how the people that follow that religion follow the deities or the gods or, you know, the beings that are over that religion, which ultimately go back to these beings who we know as extraterrestrials, like the Anunnaki, etc. So it's very possible for you to tune in to different realms and receive messages, as you say, from beings that are operating on a higher vibration. Some of them are agreeable and some of them are disagreeable. So it's really for you to tune in and look at the actions or the things that you do. If you really look at them properly, like if you were to stop doing the things that affect you negatively. So again, we do this to give information and to teach, not to really put anybody down. But if you say you're going to stop drinking, stop smoking, stop, you know, over exerting yourself and, you know, going to like wrong places, clubs, nightclubs, you know, sexual influences, you're going to cut away from negative influences, etc., you will find that the messages that you start to receive are going to be the ones that are going to help you elevate. So you're going to think about your diet, you're going to think about where you go, you're going to think about the type of music you listen to, what foods you eat, what things you put into your body. So yes, it's a very interesting question. And the more you eradicate the things that, you know, are disagreeable to you, the more you're going to lean to your agreeable side, the more you're going to hear the correct voices, because what you're actually trying to do out of these beings is, like, it doesn't matter, they may be male or female, but let's say these ones are giving you negative, anyone that's giving you a negative or disagreeable thought, let's say you stop listening to them, right? You stop listening to the different ones that are giving you wrong influences or inspiration. You cancel them out. And eventually what you start to do is hear the voices of the ones that are helping you. Or if none of them are helping you, you're going to hear your own voice clearly. And it's about knowing which voice is affecting you, which voice are you listening to, that is going to make you grow, because you've come here for a particular purpose. And to fulfill that purpose, you have to listen to the messages that are being sent to you by way of your mind. And is it telepathically influenced? Is it something you're picking up in the environment? Or is it an external being that is influencing you? And for us, the minute you start to tune into Wu Sabat, tune into the master teacher, Partner Babylon, it's like your thoughts are going to be Wu Sabat. They're going to be based on the teachings of Wu Sabat, the practices of Wu Sabat. So then you start to receive the highest knowledge and information, because this being is the highest being in whatever cultural religion you look at, whether you look at it from him being the angel Michael in the Bible, or you look at it from Tahuti being the being that is described in ancient times. You look at it from the being known as, you know, Ra. It all depends what culture you're looking at, whether it's Murdoch. Like, this being is the one that is going to influence you, because his writings and his teachings are the best teachings to help humanity and anyone who's really trying to reach the higher 9 etheric realms. Yeah, so I hope that's actually answered the question. Yeah, thanks for the question, and Badu.